I believe this is a discussion or a dialogue or a conversation between ourselves. I don't know what questions or subject you want to talk over together, but I would suggest, not that you must accept it, I would suggest that we are not exchanging opinions. We are not trying to convince each other of anything. We are not trying to persuade or coerce or subtly control each other's thinking. Or try to be clever with each other. I would suggest that before asking questions, any problem, any issue, we should be clear in ourselves who is going to answer the question. Do we, in our conversation, dialogue or discussion, discover for ourselves the answer, the fact, the truth of the matter, or expect someone to answer it for you? And if one expects the speaker to answer the questions or the issue, then I'm afraid you're going to be disappointed. But whereas if we could talk over together, find out the answer for oneself, then that question, the issue will have meaning. So please bear all this in mind, that we are not trying to convince each other, that we are not doing propaganda, that we are not trying to persuade each other to believe or not to believe, to follow or not to follow. But in our conversation, we are going to find out for ourselves the correct, the truthful solution to the issue. So, what should we talk about this morning? I'm afraid I couldn't hear. If somebody has heard it nearer, please tell me.
It appears that one of the biggest barriers to perception, to relating to a fact, is that when we see our self-interest at work, we mind what we see that self-interest. Could we go into that, please?
Has somebody could try it once more, sir.
Right. It appears to me that one of the biggest barriers is that when we see the fact of our self-interest at work, our self-centeredness, that we mind that which we see, and therefore we do not go into
I understand.
what there is to be seen. We go into this.
When we observe, the questioner asks, and if I'm putting it wrongly, please correct it. The questioner asks, any issue or any problem into which we have to have an insight or a perception is controlled by the mind. And it is not the perception, it is not the insight, but the quality of the mind that is capable of insight. Is that right, sir? Am I put it wrongly?
The point seems that there is the nature of our self-interest that we are investigating, and when we look, when we admit momentarily to our self-interest at work, we wake up to what is actually happening. We mind what we see. We don't like what we see each time. Sometimes we do observe it clearly, but the point is, the problem is when we will not look clearly at our selfishness, our self-interest.
We do not see our problems, our selfishness very clearly. That's one of the questions we want to discuss. Any others?
When we are aware of people, there can possibly be compassion, or there can be very cold awareness. What is the relationship between awareness and compassion?
What is the relationship between awareness and compassion?
We tend to intellectualize everything, whatever we hear. Why is it? Why don't we perceive what it is? Why don't we have the passion to perceive?
We intellectualize everything we hear, or when we read something, a statement of any kind, we immediately translate it into an intellectual process. Why does this happen, and can that end?
I perceive that I can be conscious of my conditioning, of certain conditioning, yet this will keep on coming up, and I feel that though I'm aware of it, I am still caught in it, and I can't seem to free myself.
When I am aware or observe my conditioning, I think I am somewhat free of it, but I come back to it again over and over and over. Is that enough for this morning? Which of these three questions, or four questions, should we take? Why, as the gentleman asked, we don't have a deep insight into our selfishness and be free of it. Then the other question was, what is the relationship between awareness and compassion? And the other question is, Why does the mind always intellectualize and therefore avoid the main issue? And the other is one is aware of conditioning and one perhaps slightly loosens up the weight of the past, but it recurs over and over again. Now, which of these four questions do we take up and go into? No answer? What? The last one. Perhaps the other questions can be included in the last question of this person, which is, it seems to happen that occasionally, when one is aware, one is interested, that this conditioning of many centuries is broken down somewhat, but it comes back again and again. What is one to do? Shall we discuss that? First of all, if we go into it seriously, and I hope you want to go into it seriously, we must be very clear not only of the question, but also how we approach the question. The approach matters enormously, perhaps more than the question itself. Right? May I go into that a little bit? There is this question, whether it is possible to uncondition the mind, whether it's possible for the mind to uncondition itself completely and not occasionally. That is the question. How do you approach that question? Because the manner of your approach will find a solution. But if you approach it with an intellectual concept, then your answer will also be very superficial. Right, sir? Or you want to be completely free of this conditioning. And therefore, your desire to be free of it is much stronger than the problem itself. Right, sir? Or is it a problem to you at all? Real problem, a real issue, like wanting food. Or is it merely a superficial, casual question you put on a day, you put while you are here? And then you forget all about it and say, well, next year we'll trot it out again. So, do you approach it intellectually, conceptually? Concept. Do you approach it with a desire to find an answer? All this indicates you are giving a direction to your inquiry. You understand? You are directing your inquiry. You are not free to inquire. So, you will never find the answer, because you are directing what the answer should be. Now, so first, please, if you are serious at all, find out how you approach this problem, the question, which is it possible for the mind to completely uncondition itself and not occasionally think it is free? Right? Now, how do you approach it? The approach is serious, and the problem is urgent, demanding. And the problem says you must find a way out of this. Right? That means you are deeply concerned with it. As you demand sexual fulfillment, as you demand money, hunger, demand it. Or do you say, well, let's talk about it casually while we are here, and afterwards we'll forget all about the beastly thing. So if you are serious, then let's investigate together. I am not investigating. You are investigating. You are inquiring. You are not accepting a thing. Right? So, what do we mean by conditioning? Education in certain ways conditions us. Going to school, college, university, if you are lucky or unlucky. And conditioning by the environment in which you live. The economic condition, the political condition, the cultural conditioning, the religious conditioning, the conditioning of what you eat, which obviously conditions, and your relationship with another, intimate or not intimate, is a factor of conditioning. So, this is what we mean by conditioning. Is that also your perception, understanding, not intellectual but actually, that is the nature of conditioning. That is, if the speaker is born in India and is conditioned by the superstition, by the culture, by the family, and so on, so on, so on, that conditioning is part of the mind, part of the brain, part of his action, part of his reaction. Now, can one be aware of all this? That's the first question. Can I be aware that I have been brought up as a Hindu with all the superstitions, with all the certain qualities of excellence, and so on, so on? Is one aware of that? Right? Then, what do you mean by being aware? Conscious? No. Is it an intellectual comprehension? I've understood my conditioning intellectually, which means verbally, right? That is, when we use the word verbally, we mean by that you hear the statement that you are conditioned. Probably you'd never even thought about it before. You hear that statement and make that statement into an idea, right? I hope you're following this, into an idea and pursue that idea that you are conditioned. The idea is not the fact, right? So what is it that you do? When you say, I know I am conditioned, is it an idea of which you are familiar, with which you are familiar? Or is it an actual fact that you are conditioned as a Christian, as a Swiss, as a Frenchman or an Englishman or whatever it is, with all the religions, with all the religious superstitions and so on and so on. If you are aware, or if you know you are conditioned, as a fact, are you aware of it? Not an entity who is aware of something. You follow? You see the difference? I wonder if you do. When you are hungry, you say, I'm hungry. That hunger is not different from you, right? Is that right? Is what we are saying, is that correct? I'm hungry. You don't say, I am different from hunger. You see the fact and you say, I'm hungry, right? The I is not separate from hunger. Is that a fact? Please discuss this, go into it. I may be wrong. Let's find out the truth of the matter. When you are angry, is that anger different from you? Or you are that? At the moment, you are that. Later on, you say, I have been angry, right? Therefore, later on, you disassociate yourself from anger. Right? So, are you aware or know or cognizant of the fact that you are conditioned? You are conditioned, not conditioning is different from me. You understand the question? This is really important. If you don't mind, go into it patiently. We'll go into it in different ways. Let us stick to this one thing so that we are very, very clear about the matter. If I say to myself, I am different from my conditioning, then I act about the conditioning, right? Then I do something about the conditioning. I work on it. I say I must be free from it. So there is conflict between me and the conditioning. Right, sir? Are you doing that? Or you are that conditioning. Then you understand? You are not different from the conditioning. Because you are Christian. You are the result of all these things that go on about around you. So you are that. You are not separate from your conditioning. This is a very complex question because one has to go deeply into it. One's thinking is the result of the conditioning. Right? Please discuss it. Don't accept anything I'm talking about. This is not a talk by me. We are discussing the thing together, talking over together. The me that observes the conditioning, that me or the observer who thinks he is observing, looking into the conditioning, is not different. He is part of that conditioning. If he is different, you take a positive action about the conditioning. You say, I must get rid of it. I must be free of my religious conditioning. So, how am I to be free? What will happen when I'm free? Will I fall into another conditioning? What will I do? What practices must I do to get rid of my conditioning? You follow? All that takes place when the me, the observer, says, I am different from my conditioning. Is that clear? Can we go on? No, not for me, clear to you. It has been clear to me since I was 20. I see. No. No. I mean, it's not a question of identification. I don't identify myself with my conditioning. No. First of all, madam, do you know you are conditioned? What do you mean you know you are conditioned? That you're a Catholic, Protestant, or a socialist, liberal, or belong to this institution or that institution, that you believe and don't believe. Come on, you have to speak a little louder. Did you hear what she said?
I said, I can see the relation which is coming when I eat, for example, this or that, what kind of feeling that is created.
Non mais là, look, vous parlez français? Allemand? Alors, say that in German, somebody will translate it. I don't understand what you're saying. So please say it.
I just want to say that I couldn't say that anything is me
I understand. I cannot verbalize what is me. Now wait a minute. Please sit down. I understand the question. I cannot verbalize what is the me. Can't you? The me is your senses. Wait, madam. Wait. With which you identify. Or you belong to somebody. Or you have identified yourself with a particular nation, with a particular name, with a particular family, with a particular group of people, with a particular series of conclusions, ideals. If you are none of these, actually none of these, then you are free from the conditioning.
No, but I see that condition is also that I'm also that, or that I'm also this. For example, if I see astrology things,
Cool.
then I see that also those things are true.
I don't understand.
If she sees astrology, then she feels that's true also.
What?
That is also true, and I see that that some kind of things which are working which are playing in that what I call you.
I'm afraid I don't understand what you're saying. You're not explaining clearly, madam. I'm not saying what is it you want to say.
I see that from that not verbalizing source, what we can call the me or the self or anything, that is playing in some things, that is acting like that sometimes, but it is not that. It is acting maybe, but it is not acting.
Do you understand what?
Asking about unconscious conditioning as well.
What, sir?
Unconscious kind of conditioning as well. There's external conditioning in the culture. There's unconscious conditioning.
I can't hear.
Unconscious conditioning.
Well, it's a deeper conditioning, it's just name, country, family.
I give it. Do you mean consciously you are not conditioned, but deep down you are? Is that what you mean? If you don't know what you mean, how can I don't know, I give up. Please, this is an important subject, because if you can understand very profoundly this question, whether the mind can be really, completely be free of conditioning. If it can, then all our problems may be resolved. Both economic problems, social problems, and so-called psychological problems, the outer and the inner, by understanding the whole nature and the structure of conditioning and being completely free from it, then the whole thing becomes entirely different. So, what we are saying is Are we aware, know, conscious, recognize that we are conditioned? That's the first thing. If you are conditioned, and you say, yes, I am, is the I who says, I am conditioned, is that I different from the conditioning? Or both are the same? This is an important question you have basically to understand. The I, the observer who says, I am conditioned, that observer is not different from the thing which he calls conditioning. He is that. Without that conditioning, what are you? If you have no name, don't identify with your body, with no group, no nationality, no belief, no religion. You follow? If you discard all that, where is the I with all the selfishness, ambition? Is washed away. So this is a very important question if you're at all serious to go into. So if you see that if the I is separate from the conditioning, then you act upon it. This action you call positive. The positive action of this kind is to struggle with it, to find out the causes of conditioning, how deeply you are conditioned, whether you can do something about it, or go to somebody and and ask them what to do. They will tell you what to do, which is practice, all the rest of it. Whereas the actual fact is the entity that says, I am conditioned and I want to be free from it, that entity is also conditioned. Therefore, there is only conditioning, not I am conditioned. You have understood this? Simple fact. So the battle is over between me and the conditioning. Now, then we can examine without division. You understand, sir? Have got it? Really got it? That you are part of that condition. You are not different from that condition. Therefore, you cannot analyze that conditioning. Right? If you analyze, there is the analyzer and the conditioning. You follow? So, if you see the actual fact that the analyzer is the analyzed, right? And this is, please, I happen to discuss this matter, the analyzer and the analyzed, with a lot of professional analysts. Very clever, top people. They immediately said, we don't understand this, please. Go and talk somewhere else. Because it means they'll lose their job. Don't laugh, we are all in that position. Lose their job, their position, they are victims of patients, and so on, so on, so on. So, this is a really very, very serious question. The conflict between the analyzer and the analyzed gives strength to the analyzer, which is the me. The analyzer is the past. The past is conditioning the analyzer. Right? Do you see this? The past is conditioning or has conditioned the analyzer. And the analyzer then says, I am going to analyze my conditioning. So he's going round and round in circles. So, to realize the absurdity, the fallacy of analysis, is to break down this division, which means the conditioning is me. The conditioning isn't over there. It is here. So what then arises the question, which is really important from there, then if I am that, what am I to do? Is that a You've understood, sir? I'm not persuading you to anything. Don't accept this. Find out the facts for yourself.
Why does it separate?
Go.
Why does the observer separate itself from the condition?
What?
Why does the observer separate itself?
Why does the observer, the analyzer, or the experiencer, or the thinker, why does he separate himself? Right? Why? Go on. He wants to be free of it. That is, the analyzer wants to be free of the analyzed. Therefore, he separates himself. What? What's up?
Make himself more strong.
That's all. No, see, no. Go into this question. It's important too. Why is there division between the analyzer and the analyzed? Right? That's what we're discussing. The conditioned and the entity that says, I am not conditioned, but I'm going to uncondition myself. Which is, wait, so that is the problem. We are saying, why is there this division? Go on.
The analyzer is the past. The action is the present.
See, capito. But why is there this division?
Because its function is to identify.
No, just don't throw out ideas. Guess.
Shouldn't the analyzer accept his own condition?
Madam, let's put the analyzer differently. Is the experiencer different from experience? Is the thinker different from thought? If there is no thinker, there is no thought. Or there may be a totally different state. Now, so they're asking, the experiencer says, I am different from the experience. I must have that experience because I am different. We're asking, why is there this division between the experiencer and who says, I must have more that experience? Sexual experience or the experience of power, and so on, so on, so on. Why is there this division? Do you know? Or are you merely guessing? Please Find out. Listen, just let me go into this a minute. If you know why the division exists, is it an intellectual conclusion, an argument, a deduction? From that deduction, you say it is so, or you say, I really don't know. Huh? Come on. I can't hear, madam.
There seems to be no space between.
What, sir?
There seems to be no space.
Huh?
There seems to be no space in the consciousness between.
When I observe, there seems to be no space.
I see. So, by creating space between the observer and the observed, have I understood the whole business? Huh? Have I? You have space between the observer and the observed. You have space when you say, this, I want that experience. There is space.
Why does it matter to find out?
Huh?
Why do you have to find out?
I'll tell you. Why do you have to find out? Are you asking this of me or of yourself?
Of myself.
If you are asking of yourself, why do you ask it? Just for curiosity?
No, I was thinking,
Just see, when there is a division, right, there is conflict, isn't there? When there is division between the Arab and the Jew, between the Catholic and the Protestant, or the North Ireland and the British, division in any form must bring about conflict. So, when there is a division between the experiencer, the analyzer, the thinker, and the thought and the experience, there must be conflict. Right, sir? So, it is a law that where there is division, there must be conflict. If there is a conflict between me and my wife, it means there is no relationship. Right? Right? There's conflict.
Sir, the other day you told us that when we are in sorrow, it is not good to try to escape from it, but just to watch it. But you warned us too, when we're watching our sorrow, not to identify ourselves with that sorrow. It seems for me quite impossible just to watch it. When I'm watching my sorrow, I'm watching with a part of me.
That's what we are going to...
With what part of the mind I have to watch my sorrow. You understand the question?
That's what we are going to find out, sir. You use sorrow and myself. I am different from sorrow. And if there is that division, then I do something about sorrow. I work at it. I say I must not be sorrow. What is the reason of that sorrow? And so analyze. Moment I begin to analyze it, I separate myself from the thing that I'm analyzing. God, is this clear? Huh? Yes, sir. If I show.
Can I say something? It's very easy to look at the manifestations of your conditioning.
What?
But it is very easy to look at the manifestations of your own conditioning. Like I am this and that, and therefore I do this and that. Now, what we are trying to do here, as I've understood it, I, inside myself, am trying to look at my own conditioning inside myself. Let's say a different way. My consciousness is trying to be conscious of itself.
What are you asking, sir?
So I'm just pointing out that the conditioning that we are trying to look at is not really an outward manifestation. We are looking at the conditioning here, if you see what I mean.
I am afraid it is an outward manifestation.
That's
When I am a Muslim and I hate the Hindu, my conditioning brings war.
but that's not the problem, is it?
That's one of the problems.
No, that is one of the consequences of being conditioned. But what
That's that I said, sir. That's right. That's one of the consequences of being conditioned.
Yes, but the root is the one who is conditioned, and we are trying to look at the one who is conditioned, not the manifestations of that conditioning.
I must not only observe.
All right, I'll put an easy question. Can my consciousness be conscious of itself, and will that promote a total change within me?
Will that promote what?
A total change within me.
Yes.
Is that a promise?
Oh no. It's not a promise. How can I promise somebody will be free? What a ridiculous question that is.
Then it's a ridiculous answer.
Probably.
Sir, may I say something? Many of us have been here many years.
I agree.
Admitted, I've probably heard you maybe 20 years. And there are some here who've heard you 50 years. I'm exactly where I was on the very first day.
That's right, sir.
What I feel, sir, is that during the previous 5 talks, you've made a certain point over and over again in different words. I'm sorry if I'm talking too long, because when you cover your face, I know you're impatient. I don't want to disturb you or try to... Can you hear me, sir? Because I can speak a little louder if you can't.
The gentleman says he's been here a number of years, hearing over and over and over again the explanations, the various forms of analysis, all that. And he says after these number of years, he's where he is, as most of us are.
May I continue a little bit, sir? Because that's not really my question. That's a preamble. Now, what I feel is, you've got a certain point to make, and you're making it in a multitude of different ways, whether it's the observer, the observed, the thinker and the thought, the experiencer and the experience, and so forth. It's all really one point. If we can't understand that point, when you put it in one set of words, we're not going to understand it if you change it into another set of words.
So,
What you want to do, and I don't blame you because you're impatient with us sitting here asking the same old stupid questions again and again and again. You want to get off, and in a very little while from where you reached a little while ago, where you pointed out that the mind that was observing the conditioning was itself conditioned and therefore couldn't do a thing about it.
that's all.
That point seems to me to be the crux of the whole issue.
Yeah, that's right,
If
sir.
we really see that, in 5 minutes we are with you on cloud 9, bliss, beatitude, the lot. If we don't see that, we'll come back here tomorrow for the remaining discussions and the years thereafter. I feel, sir, we are obviously very stupid people because you've evidently done something on your own without needing to be coached and goaded into it. We are impervious to being coaxed and goaded. But if you are patient, if you really want some chance of this point that you have been trying to make for 50 years to get across to us, more patient, because it's no use you're continuing from the point which you reached, assuming that we've got that far. We haven't got that far.
So what shall I do, sir?
It's a very big problem, sir. I don't know what you should do.
Now, just a
but I know
minute.
what you
Wait a
have been
minute.
doing is no good, because then this mixture remains exactly as it was. Some of us, we've deluded ourselves that we've understood something, but actually we've understood nothing.
So, here we are. We have come to an impasse. You have heard the speaker for 10, 30 years, or 2 years, or a day, and we haven't met each other at the central point. And the speaker may explain it 10 different ways, use new set of words, speak in French or Dutch or whatever it is, but the central point has not been understood by each one of us, and there you are. It's an impasse. So what shall we do? Why don't you walk out? I'm asking, why don't you say, sorry, this is impossible, nonsense, or what you're saying, what's the point, and walk out?
I feel we are
Huh?
I feel we are conditioned by your presence because we like you.
The lady says, I feel we are conditioned by your presence. I'll walk out. I think we are playing with words. Madam, just a minute. Just a minute, please. The gentleman raised a very good question. We have heard you for a number of years. We haven't changed. Perhaps a little bit there, a little bit, but we have actually not changed at all. That is, we have not totally unconditioned ourselves. And if there is a total uncondition, the thing is over. We shall live differently. There will be an extra, etc., etc. So what shall we do? Would sitting together quietly uncondition you? No. Talking about it as not unconditioned. Whose fault is this? Answer me, sir. Whose fault is it? Not fault, or whose responsibility? Without the word responsibility involves guilt, remove that word, that guilt away from responsibility. Whose responsibility is this? Huh? Then if it is your responsibility, what are you doing about it?
Do you wonder whether it might be yours in part?
Beg your pardon?
Do you wonder whether it might not be yours in part?
I'm asking myself, I said to you,
Obviously, it's a shared responsibility.
is it my fault? Is it partially the speaker's impatience, the speaker's presence, the speaker's dominance, the speaker's personality, right? This,
The way you put things, the way you put it.
the way I put it. The way I put it. How shall I put it? Please tell me how I should put it. I'd be delighted to learn.
I would say we take the wrong approach here. It's not fault, like as if we're looking for who's in fault of us being here. I would say that a more lighter and friendlier approach to this problem would be
Well, I don't know. I don't know what you're not helping me, sir. You're not saying something.
I say, why make it into a problem?
I'm not making it into a problem.
It's not a problem.
I never said it was. Please, sir, no, please, just a minute. I'm not making a problem.
Isn't it the fact that all this talking here of us is just a talking of the me, and the me actually had to vanish, so it cannot be for the right thing.
Quite right, sir.
We talk, the one who talks within me should vanish. So if he makes a suggestion, he never will make a suggestion to vanish, but to spread. So this talk, we cannot say anything about it really, because the one who is speaking in us will want to become stronger. So he talks like this.
I know, sir.
He should vanish at all.
Could we put it very, very simply? We are selfish people, right? Our actions are selfish. No, no, I said we are selfish people. I didn't say totally or not totally.
I want to put it, totally or not.
You may be occasionally unselfish.
Leave that aside, but the drive that is within one, to be, to have, not to lose.
All right. To be, to have, to possess, that is part of selfishness.
And that drive is a total.
Yes, all right. If you want me to put it that way, that is the essence of our existence, right? That is the total drive, as you could call it. Now, is it possible, I'm just putting it quietly, gently, is it possible to be free of that tremendous drive of wanting to be, wanting to become, wanting to possess, wanting to identify with something? Can all that drive end?
That drive also goes in the direction of the next gear, a higher gear. The ending being a higher gear.
No, that's where you and I, I'm afraid, separate company. You insist goes higher and higher and higher, becoming more and more refined. I said that is still the same drive.
Exactly. I say the same.
Yes, madam, just listen, please. That is the same drive, refined, but it's still the same. So I'm asking, is that drive, which is the essence of the self, selfishness, and all the rest of it, can that end?
At which point can that question become clean?
What?
At which point, at which step back, does that question become clean?
That question become
Become clean.
what? Clean.
Yes.
What do you mean by that? I don't understand.
Every step back one takes, posing a question, is there any point where the question is clean of that drive?
Yes. There is a point when the drive cleanly ends.
Okay.
There is no okay. No, madam. Écoutez, please listen carefully. Either you are trying to find out whether that drive can end, or you're just arguing.
This is the question for me. The drive and its perpetuation, I haven't finished. That's my question, I'll finish. And its ending seem totally unrelated to each other.
Maybe. But do I know the limits, the expanse, the extension, the extent of that drive? Because that drive, in that drive, There is every form of violence and so on, so on, so on. So I'm asking oneself, or you're asking yourself, can that drive end?
I ask who is asking this question, and I know for myself who is asking the question.
Obviously, you're asking yourself.
The drive continually takes a step back. It tries to simulate a disinterest, an objectivity, which is not inherent in its nature.
Madam, what have we to do? You insist on one thing, right? Perhaps, if I may respectfully point out, you are perhaps not listening. You are sticking to your point. And you may accuse me, I'm sticking to my point.
No, I prefer to say that here we part company.
Come on.
Let's put it this way, that here we part company.
What? What? People are?
You and she do what you said, we part company.
Look, please, as I said before, and I'll repeat it again, I am not trying to convince you of anything. I am not telling you what to do. I am not your guru or subtle form of, all that stuff. I'm saying, because we are conditioned, from that conditioning, all problems arise. That's all. From that conditioning, there is a certain drive, to use her word. The drive is more and more to be separate, more and more violence, as it objectively is happening in the world, and so on and on and on. A man, a woman who is serious says, now, will there be an end to all this? That's all. Or must this go on in a refined state? More and more subtle ways of violence, more and more subtle ways of conflict, more and more subtle ways of keeping up the division, and so on, so on. That comes to essentially what that lady is saying. The speaker says for himself, that you must accept, don't accept. He said there is a total ending of this drive, which is in essence the self. Then you will say, how does it manifest itself in daily life? I say to that, find out. Find out to what extent you are selfish, to what extent you are self-centered, concerned about yourself, both inwardly and outwardly. Find out. And see if that is not causing tremendous harm in the world. When each human being is occupied with himself, which is our condition. If you want to find out if one can live harmoniously, happily, supremely intelligently, outwardly and inwardly, you have to find out for yourself whether you can be free of this drug. Which means, are you willing to give time, energy? Follow? Apparently, though you may listen for 10 years or 15 or a week, apparently this doesn't exist. And to that you might say it is your You are using wrong words. You may use different expressions. To that we say we are using ordinary, everyday language.
But all that belongs to the same package. All that you have said up to now belongs in the same package. The business of
Of course, madam. Now, of course it belongs to the same package. But to explain the content of the package, one must use words.
the content, yes, that is the content. The content has the different aspects all carry the same keynote.
Yes, madam, understood.
But one can endlessly examine the content. The purpose of examination is no different to the content.
What will you do, madam? You know the content as well as I do, and most of us know what the content is, what we are carrying in the bag for the rest of our lives. Most of us know. Then why don't you or another put it aside?
No, can't be done.
Well, that's finished.
Because the putting
Madam,
putting aside is for the same purpose.
you say it can't be done. Wait, that's enough.
Now, with making a tremendous effort in whatever disguise, one can go in for the whole scheme of self-improvement. Okay.
I don't know
now,
what
we leave that aside.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, drop it. But when you say to me, why don't you drop it? I say, first of all, I'm not interested in making efforts to drop. When my shoe pinches, I'll buy another pair of shoes.
Madam, that's not the question.
I haven't finished.
That,
It's the same thing. It's the same thing. To say to someone, drop it, is
I-
nonsensical. It doesn't happen that way. It can't
Look,
be
oh
done
gosh.
that way. Everyone here knows that it doesn't happen that way. I don't know what makes for the difference. Why it should happen, when it should happen. It doesn't seem to have any cause, any reason. It seems to be totally unrelated to all that one may wish or desire or be so objective about.
if a particular diet doesn't suit me, I change the diet.
I know why I changed the diet.
Wait, madam, I haven't.
You always want to go away. You always want to go and speak in terms of as if changing the diet is so clean, a clean action. It is not. How could we say so?
You say you cannot change. You cannot radically bring about a transformation. It's impossible. All right, finished. Then why do you stay here?
Go home. Go home.
No, please.
I find that again and again, you yourself reiterate the point. There is nothing you can do. Only when the observer is the observed, then. Only when there is no experiencer. The first step is the last step. You yourself point this out again and again.
Our conversation between us ends. Right. What is that? Yes. Why should...
If I try to get sleep in a very good way of my condition, I fear this would be still another illusion. I'm conditioned by my tradition, and I try to be open for other people. And if it is necessary, I'm ready to try to modify my conditions, my conditions. But if I don't love my own people, how can I love other people? It must not be a blind love.
So where? I don't know quite where I am. Do you?
May I ask a question? I fear when I am totally free of my conditions and of my drives, I don't know if I'm existing anymore. I lose myself, but what's then me?
What will happen to me, the questioner says, if I end the drive? We are using a new set of words. What will happen? Will that be the end of me? Probably. You see, apparently, any amount of our talking together doesn't do anything. You can cleverly oppose what one says, or say you use a different language, different expression, it's this and that, but we are, as I said, ordinary common English. Now, we have come to a point when apparently the words, knowing the word is not the thing, the word and the description is not the described, knowing all that, we are confronted with a simple problem, which is we human beings are very selfish, limited. And from that limited state of mind, our whole problem arises. We are destroying the earth and so on, so on, so on, which all of us know. Now what shall we do? To me, personally, if I listen, that's enough for me. If I listen accurately, that's enough. To me personally, someone says to me, is it possible to end this drive of the self, which is the selfishness and all that? Will you end it? Is it possible to end it? And will you end it if you find it? If I hear it completely as I do, then the very statement of that is acting on me. I don't argue, I don't say, show me. I have learned the art of listening. That's all. If I listen accurately, the thing is embedded in me, it works.
These
Now, this morning we have talked an hour and 20 minutes. Where are we? Are we going to say, well, I am exactly the same place as I was 10 years ago, or same place in my place, not the actual physical space, in myself, I haven't moved. I am still appallingly selfish. I'm still being driven by that. All right. Is that what you have learned this morning? Is that what we have learned? That we are terribly selfish people, that this selfishness is the drive in our life, and there is no answer to it. We'll go on our way as we have been doing for millennia. If that is so, we can't communicate with each other. Because the speaker says it is not only an absolute necessity to end the drive, because it's creating havoc in the world, and also he says, yes, it can be done. Will you listen to that? Or say, no, I have listened to you for 10 years, and will you listen with your heart, with your mind, something which will, when you love something, you listen, right? When you love your little baby, you listen to it. So can you listen so carefully, so attentively, with affection to this statement that we are being driven by selfishness? And are you aware of it? Can you end it? Let's find out whether it's possible. That's all. If you don't want to end it, it's perfectly all right. Nobody's asking you to end it. If that is the way you want to live, conflict, wars, all that's going on in the world, one superstition against another, which is called religion, one nationality against that. If you want all that, it's your affair, go at it. But if you say that's all wrong, that is all the drive of the self, is there a different way of living? I say, let's talk it over together. That's all. Now,